If you're not convinced of the system yet, this is where the insanity becomes sanity. This is where dodge and burn dies. We're going to use frequency separation on the skin, and it's going to completely change the way that you do skin from now on. I guarantee this. Let's check it out. So let's start in on the arms. Let's make these beautiful and perfect. First, I'm going to separate. Let's cruise in a bit, get a little closer. Might be a little much. Let me see what 5 looks like. Yeah, it's better. Let's give it a try. Now, what am I looking for when I do that separation on the skin? We've seen it on fabric, but it's important to know the differences that we're looking for with skin. It's pretty similar, but I can show you here. I basically want to be able to attack variations in the skin, bigger variations, changes in value and hue, and I want to make sure I can see those on the low. If I push that too much, the median, then I'm going to start to lose access to these kind of chunky shapes in here that you can see. And I don't want to push those onto the high layer because that means I have to do too much careful work. And here with skin, what we can do is really smooth stuff out, and there's some techniques to bring back detail in a much cooler way, in a much more uniform way afterwards if we go too far. I'm going to start just looking at the low, and I'm going to clean using mixer brush. I'm on a 60% opacity still. And I'm going to move through in much the same fashion as I was on the fabric. Notice I'm not doing big swipes here because this is the important thing about skin, and this is why everybody freaks out about frequency separation use on skin. And it's true, people do use it wrong. And the traditional way has such fundamental flaws in it that it's really, really easy to use it wrong. So what I'm doing is staying really local to the variations in the skin that I don't like. And what I'm doing as a result is preserving some of the variation, some of the blotchiness in the skin that gives it that realistic feel. If we totally remove that, then that's when stuff starts to look really fake. So start by preserving that. You can always continue to smooth more, but it can be a little bit tricky to bring stuff back. Now, we were just looking at the low. Let's turn the high back on. That's some pretty nice smoothing in that forearm. It's starting to get a little bit brushy, a little bit soft in some areas. Which we've got ways to go back and fix. I'll show you how to do that after we finish up this arm. So when you think about the traditional way that you might approach skin using dodging and burning, there are a lot of different methods that people use to do that. Some using pixel layers, some using curves, painting on masks. Either way though, you look at it, it's pretty tedious, very granular, very time consuming work, and you are constantly having to be really careful about where you're putting down a change to color and value. Now, by separating and working in this way with these tools, Median's been able to help me preserve edges, and I don't get any of that weird haloing that's inherent to earlier frequency separation techniques. And I don't have to worry about inadvertently brightening a pixel that I want to darken that's adjacent to a dark pixel, for instance. I don't have to be that careful. This frees me up to just move so quickly through the image and to create contour and form with the larger areas of value really quickly, and then go in and clean up the pores and higher frequency information, still in a very careful way, but not having to go all the way into the molecules and just spend hours and hours noodling around with little dark spots and little light spots. That's why I'm saying this is killing DB. We can move past that and move into this new style where we can move so much faster and more intuitively through cleaning up skin. Now, we're being mindful of the same concerns that we would with traditional skin work. We want to preserve the surface detail. We want to preserve pores. We want to do this in a way that's a lot more uniform. We want to create textural detail, modify it so that it's a lot more uniform over the surface. Now, keep in mind, this is a sports image. This is not a fashion image. So we're not doing quite the same process or styling that we would do to fashion skin, but you can see that the major concerns translate to both. It just depends on how far we mean to take the skin cleaning in a sports image versus a fashion image. So let's do a before and after, take a look at what we've done. That was pretty fast skin cleanup. Now I see an area where it got a little bit soft down here around the forearm. I do want to remove that variation in there that was originally there, the natural kind of skin blotchiness, but I don't want it to look so polished and airbrushed. We have to be super careful about that because people are so used to seeing that as an error. You don't even have to be a retoucher to know that. You can pick right up on it. You want to be able to eliminate that airbrush look, and I'll show you how to do it using a quick brush technique. Now, above my low layer, I'm going to bring up a new pixel layer. Remember, here in the low component, you can stack up as many pixel layers as you want. If you need to move on to a next step with the low layer, you think you might be pushing the mixer brush work too far, go ahead and duplicate your low too to continue working just in case you need to go back. Also, you can add blank pixel layers here and do additional brush work on top just using the regular brush. I'm going to switch to the regular brush, and I'm going to use a brush of mine that I call a chalk brush, but it's really just some debris. I'm going to change the spacing so that it makes more of a continuous line of like noise or dust. Change the shape dynamics so it changes the angle randomly. And then sampling lighter area of the skin, maybe something like that for the foreground, and a darker area for the background. And I'm going to set the flow down to like 10% because I want to go super light on this. I'm going to start with brushing in lighter areas to bring back some variation in the skin. You see just doing that, it's very subtle, but it added a little bit of surface and a little bit of tooth there. And if you feel like you're not getting enough punch, you can sample even a brighter area. Let's turn that on and off. You can see that surface that's starting to form here underneath the high. It's amazing how much a little bit of tooth, a little bit of natural looking but uniform skin variation is going to really add to the realism of any work that was done that made it look a little bit too soft. You can even bring your flow up to like 20. Sculpt areas a little bit more. And if you want to switch to the darker, you can add some of that in too. So let's turn that on and off. Now you can see that there's some good noisy surfacey variation getting in there. The alternative is to basically mask back or erase down to the actual skin that was underneath there. But I don't want to really bring back any of this blotchiness because it's really pretty uneven and disorganized. I want to bring back a nice uniform surface detail that I'm totally in control of. So that was great progress in a very short amount of time. See a couple more things that I want to fix here, especially the elbow. It's sort of getting a little bit dull. It's a little bit distracting. I want to make a more uniform hue across the whole surface of the arm. And a little bit on the wrist. I'll probably do some more cloning on the high. I'm going to bring up a new pixel layer. Go to my regular brush. Put it back to the soft brush. I'm going to set that pixel layer to color because I don't really want to mess with any of the luminosity here. in the elbow, but I just want to shift the color a bit. I'm going to sample from an area where the color is a little bit more rich, and my flow's down to 20. Let's see if that shifts the color in a positive direction. Maybe up there a little bit too. Now we want variation in the skin tone, but that was just getting a little bit too blue on the elbow. And I can always dial that back just a bit by reducing the opacity of my layer that's set to color. You can even label this stuff so you know what's going on. So I think that's a pretty positive change. Still see a little remnant of that scar there. But yeah, some of it's still on the low. It's easy to take care of that. Gonna patch in a little bit of skin detail there. Maybe just reduce. Awesome. I'm really happy with how quick and easy that was, but just not quick and easy, that it's still really high quality. All right, I'm ready to get started on the face. I know that that's part of my base group. The face and the ankles are accessed through that layer, so I'm going to separate. Once again, I'm going to go in close, turn preview on and off. It's a pretty important decision, so at this stage, go ahead and spend a little bit of time here. I think I'm going to go for a 5er. Yeah, so once again, what am I looking for here? I like having access to these kind of bigger skin blotches around here. I like making sure that a lot of that stuff is on the low, so I can use mixer brush to wipe that stuff off. But I want to make sure that I'm retaining a good amount of the sweat and skin surface detail up on the high. Once again, it's that special balance that you'll get a lot better at as you go and experiment and see what works best. But for now, my advice is just spend a little bit of time thinking through that and think of it in terms of what do I want to be able to kill with the mixer brush, because that's pretty much the ultimate tool in this workflow. Even though we can use a lot of other tools, mixer is my favorite, and I want to be able to exploit its good qualities as much as I can. So A lot of times it's a lot less distracting to work with the high layer turned on. You can be a lot looser because if I'm working in here on the low, it's easy to get caught up, stuck trying to really smooth out the skin perfectly. But if you've got the high on, you can really see how the two interact and make decisions on a sort of more global scale. I'm intentionally trying to reduce the tracks of the sweat there. They're a little bit distracting on the face. Now, this is an important point that you need to be able to answer. We're looking at this guy's ear, and it's got some irregularities in it that you might not think are ideal, or might not be ideal by popular culture standards. Now, you need to ask yourself the question, especially if this guy's a recognizable athlete. If you go changing something recognizable about his body without his consent or without your client's consent, that might be a big problem. So answer this question. Think about the things that we can do to preserve the authenticity of the image and the authenticity of the personality, and definitely develop an ethic for that and a reason why you would or would not change things, and always make a decision based on that ethic, and if you have to change it later, that's okay. So that said, I'm not going to make any big changes to this guy's ear unless my client or he requests it. Yeah, so you can see this is a pretty major skin cleanup in a pretty short amount of time. Now, keep in mind, this is not a fashion image. With something like that, we're going to go a lot further. But you can see we're simplifying all the stuff that's going on in the face, and by peeling all that stuff back, it gives us better access to the story that's happening, to all the important elements that tell that story, rather than all this extra noise that's distracting us from the most important elements of the image.